The Maroon White Pod brought to you by Citylink. For bookings, timetables, updates and any other information, head to citylink.ie. Welcome along to the Maroon White Pod. This week we're going to be focusing on Galway and Kilkenny, which takes place on Sunday at 2 o'clock in Pearse Stadium. This week I'm joined by Loughrea senior hurling coach Shane Cusack and former Galway hurler Craig Lally to look ahead to the game this weekend. Craig, coming to you first. The Carlow game at the weekend, job done, but bit of an underwhelming performance.
Yeah, job done, out of the way, points in the bag, but small bit, I suppose, two areas for concern definitely after the weekend, and in particular the amount conceded, I'd say, and conceding 2 goals, and I suppose not kind of an underwhelming performance, I suppose, and lots of areas to work on, albeit I know there's a lot of mixing and matching with the team, and maybe not the best team out, but I suppose overall, I'd say when you look at what Kilkenny did tantrum, I suppose it's probably not the best way to be coming into the Kilkenny match. So lots of areas to work on during the week. I'm sure they probably had one eye on the Kilkenny match leading up to the match there at the weekend, and maybe what team they're going to line out. But yeah, it wasn't the most I suppose impressive first round performances compared to years gone by. But look, it's a different gravy. It's a different gravy again on Sunday. It'll be a massive step up in class, and I'm presuming that there'll be at least a third of the team changed by throwing come Sunday. A lot of the lads would have come on that would, I imagine, be starting the next. So I'm sure we'll go through it in more detail as we go into the pod later.
Yeah, Shane, that's the thing. When you look at what Kilkenny did to Antrim and Galway, like they're always ahead on occasions against Carlow, but when they brought it back to 4 points, you would be getting a bit nervous around them. But the way they finished it then to go with 7 points up, and then the way they won it out in the end. But just a few areas of concern, as we mentioned, from that performance.
Yeah, but at the same time, Galway, hiding to nothing. If they demolished them, everyone would be saying like, it was no benefit to them. So they got a bit of a test, got a run out, and at the same time, they're to test some players' blood, some new guys, championship debuts for 1, 2 lads. And then when Carlo came back, they ready to say the ship, calling the reinforcements, subs came on, and the team pushed on again. So I think the management team would be happy enough the way it went. They got what they're looking for, and focus the minds. And as Greg said, at the back of everyone's head is probably still the fact that Kilkenny are coming to town this Sunday, and everything was building towards that.
Is the former Conor Cooney still the biggest positive, do you think, Shane, out of Sunday when you see he scores 110 and he's really continuing his good form from the club into the county this year?
I think the form of a lot of the players in general would be a real positive. It's probably unfair to single Conor out week in, week out, whether he plays well or whether he doesn't. But by and large, he's been pretty solid since he came back from club duty with Thomas's. So I think management will be happy with him. He was obviously taking the frees, I think, the last day as well, wasn't he? Evan was on the bench. So like he put up good returns during the league. I think he chipped in with 5 points from play against Tipperary. So yeah, I wouldn't see it as a source of worry. And then I'd be fairly confident that Conor would step up to the mark and have a very good game on Sunday.
Craig, what do you make of what we did with the team? They gave a lot of lads opportunities. What did you make of that?
It has to be done, and you need to see what lads are like in championship. It's a big step up from the league campaign, and there was definitely lads that emerged at their start there as well over the course of the league. There's a lot of lads that stepped up, like in particular Gavin Lee. Like I was happy to see Gavin get the start, and I'm sure he'll be thereabouts when they're sitting down to pick the team during the week. Had a good return as well of 1-2 at the weekend. So the likes of him coming through, John Cooney got his chance there. Declan McLaughlin got his chance. So all these lads, and these are the lads that you're going to need, like whether it'll be starting or a part of your 20 going forward with the championship. And you've seen how important that was for the Limerick Clare match the weekend. And it was the 16-20 that won the game for Limerick at the weekend when they come on. And they changed everything, and you could probably argue that it was a losing of the game for Clare because their 16-20 didn't really perform near as what Limerick did. So all we're going to need that, and we spoke about that before in the past year, that we're going to need those 4 or 5 subs, or as Gareth Hegarty called them at the weekend, finishers, to come on and really finish the game. And whether that's Gavin or Declan or John Cooney starting or either coming on, you're going to need all those. And like you're going to need a panel of 20, 21 players, 22 players as the year goes on. So it was great to see them get their chance. And as Shane said, there's loads of positives to take from the game. And I think in particular, the likes of those 3 or 4 lads that they got their chance and they stood up and did well. That was definitely one of the main positives.
It's something we've referenced on the podcast, Shane, maybe that we haven't seen some of these young players from minors and 20s come through, but we're now starting to see them, the likes of Gavin, Declan, John Cooney. That has to be a positive for all of these lads that they're playing championship minutes, and they're some of them players are really pushing for a start now on Sunday.
Yes, I think so. But I think when it comes down to push comes to shove, it'll be very much a settled side that we've seen in the past. But I think we can also get caught up in this whole thing of saying where are the lads coming through. Like the reality is every player on that team has come through minor under 21 or under 20 system. It's obviously taken longer to get from the development of minor to 20 to 21. Like the average probably players making their debuts now is probably older than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago anyway. It's going to take like a 17-year-old or 20-year-old like 2 or 3 years of conditioning just to get up to the level that's at the game is being played. So I think it's going to take longer in the future or currently to get to inter-county level standard. And in your career is probably going to be shorter when you are. It's just, I think the way the professionalism in the game has gone and sustained those levels. So I think, yes, as Greg mentioned, Gavin is a great example. I think as far as I know, himself and Tiernan are the only 2 from that minor squad, and then Donal was a year or 2 earlier. Any minutes they get in the bank will only stead to them, this weekend, I'm sure. But I do think there will be a couple of changes, and you probably think the 2 wing forward positions, especially, will go back to tried and trusted. But this is a big game for Galway management and Galway hurling in general. It's we don't get on home games for minors and 20s, so it's very important. We do get championship games. Are waiting so long to have them. In general, Kilkenny are coming to town. It's a big game for Galway. I think they'll go the tried and trusted route from that.
It's a big game there, as you mentioned, and well, we're going to have a go here now at trying to pick the starting 15 for Sunday. I presume both the number 1 position who's going to play on Sunday, it's going to be Derek, going by the league, and he's played all the championship games. Well, 1 championship game so far.
I can't see how that's going to change now at this stage. And in all fairness to him, he's been very solid and reliable so far in the league campaign. I know he had his injuries there to start, so Derek took his chance very well. And at this stage, I can't see how it's going to change, especially after the weekend when he's been put in.
What happens then in the full back line this weekend? Who are the 3 players you would like there?
They've a lot of faith in Jack Grealish, and I think the fact that Owen Cody is a doubt, I would imagine that Jack would probably matched up to Owen Cody. I know he caused problems for Galway in the stadium, say 2 years ago, but I honestly thought that wasn't it was more down to Cody's brilliance than anything on Jack's behalf, because he was right where he should be, right, making contact when the ball came in, but Cody was just on a different level that day. So I'd figure he'd start, Pádraig Mannion will probably play at the top, the player that goes out. I'd assume he will drift out and pick him up with 4 on his back. He's played in that role throughout the most of the year. And even at county level, you see that it's almost like that player that comes out is almost like a second centre back nowadays. He's more often than not in the sitting 6, almost old sitting 6 position when he's out in the top of the D or with the track and the defender that comes out. And after that, then we look management against Limerick, and they've picked Fintan in there. There's no reason to suggest that things will change. So I would imagine that the full back line won't see any changes there. Anyway, maybe Greg has a different take on that now, but that's what my take on it.
No, I'd have the exact same take. I think that's the way it's going to be. I don't think it's going to change. The only position that might, like Darren come on the last day with a few minutes to go, I think Jack will get the nod over Darren anyway, the way it is at the minute, in my own opinion. And I'd agree with what Shane says. I thought Jack did a great job on Cody 2 years ago. If he does play, I know he's limped off the last day, but he's probably their main threat in the forwards at the minute. Jack, I imagine, became up, and Fintan has been solid, and Pádraig to play that, as Shane said, that role where he was out, and a lot of the times he actually finds himself free, so he's very good at that role. So no changes there in my opinion either.
The half back line's interesting. Dahi the last day plays in that wing back role. Adrian Tui actually played 6 the last day, and then Sean Lennon was 5. You expect Keenan to come back in there, and they're that's probably they're probably picking. Are they picking between three or those 4 players now for the half back line?
You go with this one, Greg.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, yeah, I think like Ado finished off the league very well, and was Dewey start there at the weekend. Obviously, Keenan obviously picked up a niggle, so wasn't able to play, and Keenan played very well in the league as well. Sean, I suppose, would probably be, I'd say, in my mind, the one to lose out there. Whether they stick with Ado at 6, or like Ado be more renowned in the county team to be playing at wing and Dahi at 6. Um, I suppose a lot will depend on what way Kilkenny line out in as well. But like I think myself, Sean might lose out there, and Keenan will come back into wing or 6. And either or Ado will go to wing or 6. Any three of them can play in each position there, I think, in the half back line. So I think it'll be more of who they're marking, more so than a set position. But any three of them can play. Like Keenan's played in 6 for the start of the league. Obviously, Dahi's played in 6 for the last couple of years when he's not played full. And Ado will be more renowned for the wing, I'd say, in their county. But I think whatever way they line out, that'll be the three that'll start the next day.
Who would you put at 6, Shane?
Well, yeah, I'd go with Keenan Fahy at 6 if it was my call. But obviously, you have to trust the management, and that's what we do, and what the calls they make. I think if you put Dahi to the wing, it allows you greater matchup freedom, and also there's a switch with Finton if you feel that you need a different look on each in line, where you're not upsetting the spine of the team, and the luxury of having someone like Dahi Burke on a wing forward. Like, who knows, what the players they play. I know that, like, if you were on Mullen, if he tends to start, he tends to play wing forward. I think it'd be a great matchup for Dahi and for Galway. Whereas maybe if it goes a different route, or different, maybe he doesn't make the team, it's maybe different. It might be a speedster on the wing. Maybe they go a different route on that. I also like the ability where I think we feel we're probably a better building the play team with someone like Keenan maybe at 6. His stick work and his striking ability is top notch, and was very noticeable throughout the league campaign and some of the games I saw up close, how strong has got physically, and his confidence in himself to break the tackle and get out through it and play a pass or two is very interesting. I suppose we haven't mentioned Ronan Glennon as well. At times he played at wing back, and I think against Limerick he might play wing back too in the last game in the league, and he got 4 that day, if I'm not mistaken, got 2 points for play, I think. So he's showed well at wing back as well, whereas maybe Sean Annan might slot into the midfield sector. I think when they go with something like Dahi on the wing, Keenan at 6, and like Ronan Glennon offers great flexibility. It allows you that flexibility within your team to depending on matchups and depending on what the opposition do, it allows you great freedom and flexibility without really losing your structure or platform.
Midfield is tough then, because as Shane mentioned there, Craig, you have Ronan Glennon, who's played wing back and he played midfield the last day. You have the same with Sean Lennon. If he doesn't play in the half back line, you can bring him into midfield. Gavin Lee can play out there. Donald O'Shea started the last day. David Burke, does he come back into the equation? Who are the two there you'd be looking after Sunday?
Yeah, I think that was a great point about Ronan Glennon, like slotting back into wing back and Sean midfield, which would have been the case for most of the league and a lot of the championship last year, where Sean played a lot of his game time at midfield as well. I thought Ronan was very good the last day from what I seen. Midfield, I like the way he bombs forward. I think 2 years ago when Ronan made his breakthrough, he had a great year in midfield as well. So without a doubt, I bring Davy back in for the experience. Kilkenny lined out with Richie Reid and Keane Kinney there the last day. I think with the likes of Richie Reid, that'd suit Davy down to the ground. That type of a player, he'll float around like Davy, which will suit him. Keane Kinney be more of a runner, like, so then you have Ronnie Glennon or Sean picking up him. It'd be good matchups for Galway. But I'd probably stick with Ado at wing back, and I'd like to have Ronnie Glennon and Davy midfield experience. And I thought Ronan, from what I seen the last, had a great game, a great league campaign as well. So I liked what he did a few years ago midfield as well. I just think that suits the dynamic of what Kilkenny will bring as well. I'd imagine Kilkenny will stick to the same midfield. I can't imagine their team will change too much. And yeah, I think that's the way I'd line out on here.
It does seem like that could be the midfield really for the year this year, Shane.
I don't know. I think it'll chop and change depending on venues. Certainly in Pearse Stadium, to Crow Park, it's a different venue and different speed, all that kind of needed. And I think even for your midfielders, two players to start and finish midfield, that's not so easy nowadays either. And so I'd agree with Greg. I think David will start. I think Ronan Glennon will start somewhere. I'm not sure whether it'll be wing back or whether it will be midfield, but I think he'd start somewhere. And I would definitely think that in the back of Galway's heads as well, maybe a Sean Annan or maybe an Adrian Toohey, someone comes in, maybe fresh legs. At this stage of David's career, it might be an issue, in terms of getting fresh legs on for the last 10 minutes. I think the point you made about Richie Reid is very good as well. He tends to be more of a sit or dropping midfielder, isn't he? He plays a lot of his club hurling or his games for Kilkenny in the half back line as well. So we'd have to assume that he'll be providing defensive cover, almost in the role that David often does for Galway as well, and they won't be choosing their moments to get forward, whereas Cian Kenny can get forward, and he's a kind of a streaky player. He's been known to, if he gets a couple of points early, he can end up at 4 or 5 from play. So I think Galway will try and keep tabs on him early and watch that matchup develop.
At the half forward line, does Johnny Glynn come into the equation this weekend?
I think it'll be very hard for him to start. I think he will have an influence in the game, maybe as an impact sub with however much time to go, maybe 10-15 minutes to go, but I can't see him starting. But look, there is I think this is a big area of the field that we need to win the next day, and in particular our puck outs, our primary possession. I think we need to just really focus in here. You're going to have Deegan, Blanchfield, Mikey Carey started winning back the last day. So Blanchfield and Deegan are very good in the air. Maybe Mikey Carey not so good. Maybe probably pinpoint him, try and win high ball off him. Whatever way we line out. Tom Mann played 11 the last day. He will be very good in Paddy Deegan now, roaming around and pulling him out of 6 and trying to get him out of there. I'd imagine Joey Cooney might start wing forward there. You're probably Connor maybe come out a small bit as well if Wheelo starts inside. So there's loads of different options and ways this half forward line could go. You'd imagine that Wheelo will start inside. Brian will probably start inside as well. Bino won't be far off, I'd say. And then after that, Cahill, you've Evan. Gavin Lee has shown great form, but if Shane said at the start of the podcast, it'll probably go back to the tried and tested, I think. Gavin has shown great form. Will have a big part to play in the Galway setup. As Shane said, might start again in 2 weeks' time. But I think if I was picking it myself, I'd pick it with tried and tested in the morning. So you'd have Cahill, Wheelo, and Bino maybe inside, Cahill coming out, and then go for the juggler in the half forward line. Win your primary possession. Joe Cooney in the wing. Tom Mann and Connor Cooney. You're going to have Connor either wing or centre. Tom Mann, Evan is there as well. So I don't know. And as Shane said there as well at the start of the podcast, Connor is well capable of hitting the freeze. He's done it year on year for Thomas's. Can you start the both of them, Connor and Evan, in regards to giving that title of taking the freeze? I don't know, is there room for the two of them within the team now? When you name out all those forwards? And that's the question they'll have to ask. So in my eyes, Tom Mann has done a great job in the last 2-3 years since he came back in the panel. It'll be very hard to drop him off it. And he's had a good league campaign as well. So I'd probably go for him at centre and Connor and Joey Cooney in the wings.
Would you go for the same, Shane?
Probably in many ways, yeah. I think Brian Cannon's going to. I think he'll start. He's a great record against Kilkenny. I think he got 1-5 down in Nolan Park last year, another 3 points in the Leinster final as well. 4 points the year before from play, so he's obviously got a good record against them. They seem to have trouble tying him up, Kilkenny, and I think he'll play, irrespective of that. But I think that would only add to that as well. I think Guido will start as well. And Cahill Mannion, he could start probably in a few different positions in the forward line as well. I think that the choice will come down to 2 from 3 from Evan, Tom Mann, and probably Joseph Cooney. As Greg said, if they want to try and it's obviously going to be the half Forward line's going to be a huge issue on the puck out. So Connor will be a target on one side, and then it's, do they trust the other lads getting around the breaks enough on that, or can they get Cahill on the puck outs underneath them from as well full length? I think if they go with Evan, he might swap positions with Cahill Mannion. Maybe Cahill goes to 11, Connor one wing, and Tom Mann maybe drifting around. Evan has they've obviously shown a lot of faith in Evan. He's played most of the big games in the last couple of years. And traditionally, like the games that have been played in the group stage have been very tight. I think Galway have is it 2 1-point wins, or maybe 2.1-point win and a draw. So the chances are this game on Sunday will come down to a one-score game as well. And then in that scenario, I don't see a situation where Evan Island isn't on the field to finish the game. Whether he starts it or comes on, I don't know. But in a tight game like that, you want your main shooters on the ball, and nobody can doubt Evan's ability to nail pressure shots. So it's very difficult one to call. They can go both either ways. Toman, he won a couple of frees a couple of years ago. You were in Pearse Stadium there a couple of years ago, and things that it's so. I have a sneaky suspicion Evan will start somewhere, and maybe Tom might be the man to lose out in that scenario. They might go Cahill Mannion at centre maybe, or Connor and Connor Joseph and Cahill across the half forward line.
And you just mentioned there, Shane, where you think it might come down to between Evan and Tom. Do you think it's a battle between those two for the number 11 jersey this year?
No, I don't. I think the days of nailing down a position for the season I don't think that's part of management's thinking. Many intercounty management's thinking. There's so many variables in each game now, and different formations the team play, and different stages in games. Even you want to need a different person in the half forward line, or different depending what your team needs at that moment in time. So I wouldn't necessarily see it come down to a straight race between those two as well. There's a lot of competition for places, and any one of those 7 or 8 lads we've mentioned are well capable of starting the game. So I don't think it's an either or. It could go night, and we might all be wrong. And management, you have to trust their decision. They're the ones that see them day in, day out of training. But I would also touch on the point that Greg made there as well about Johnny Glynn. I don't see him starting the game. I think it would just be a tricky dynamic for group dynamic, maybe for the squad more than anything else. But there's no doubt he'll have a role to play in the championship, whether it's this weekend or going forward. He's not brought back to sit on the bench. I mean, he's something different than what we have already, and he will see action, whether that's Sunday or the week after, who knows, but he will see action at some stage.
Greg, just on that, when we're talking about all the options, do you think management genuinely don't know their best 6 forwards at the minute?
As Shane said, I don't think it's not that they know their best 6 forwards, but for every single opposition you come up against, there'll be different dynamics to choose from. Like, so you could be coming up against a big half back line that you might need some big men against. The half back line you come up with mightn't be as big, so Evan might suit better. It could be a shooting game, as Shane mentioned earlier on. You could have a different size pitch. This is a Nolan Park post Pearse Stadium. It might suit some lads different. All that, like, there's just so many different variants, I think. And as Shane rightly pointed out there, if Tom Mann didn't start and Evan started, you wouldn't be fazed by it, or you wouldn't be any less confident by any of the lads starting, or if Sean Linan started, or Ronnie Glennon, or Davy. And I think that's a great position to go in at the minute. That they've now, all those lads have now gained so much experience, and as Shane mentioned with Evan, for the last 3 or 4 years, Galway's put great faith in Evan, or Tom Mann over the last 3 years, and obviously the lads that are still there from 17 and years before that, they have loads of experience. But the lads that are there now 3 or 4 years, they've been here before. They've played Kilkenny, and the team that will line out the next day, whatever way they do line out, and as Shane said, it could be totally different than what we say here. There's no doubt that they've all had a few years under the belt now. There'll be no fresh player in there for the first time or anything like that. And I think that will be something that will stand to go the next day. And as we mentioned, and we've battled it out there for a few positions, 3 or 4 subs that will come on will have also good experience. Some of them 7 or 8 years, 9 years intercounty experience. And I think that's where we're a small bit ahead of Kilkenny the next day. The Kilkenny probably don't have, yes, they have 7 or 8 lads with loads and loads of experience, but they probably don't have the depth that we have in our panel at the minute, for experience-wise. So I think if we can keep everyone fit and everyone is healthy going into the next day, and then you have the likes of Johnny coming back there with a different dynamic, something different, we're in a really good position, I think. Definitely in a good position. And as we mentioned earlier on, if we can just find that flair of someone different in like a Gavin Lee or Declan McLaughlin or John Cooney or Liam Collins or someone like that, just to add something totally different in, or Tiernan Gilleen or someone.
Just on that, there's a lot of questions this week, Shane, going around that how important is this game? These two are likely to meet in the Leinster final again. As the talk goes around about this in the Leinster Championship nearly every year, but is it important this weekend for us to get a result, given we haven't beaten them in 2020 since 2022?
I think it's more important for Galway than it is for Kilkenny. Kilkenny have lost to Galway like twice. They haven't beaten them in the group stages, I think, since 28 or certainly since 2018. But they've won the last three Leinster finals against Galway. So even if they come to Pearse Stadium and they leave with nothing, I don't think it'll phase them at all. The dynamic between Leinster and Munster is obviously very, very different. If you lost them last Sunday in Munster, the chances are you are under serious pressure when this weekend. But it doesn't seem to be quite as strong across the board in Leinster. All the pundits seem to be saying it's already going to be Galway Kilkenny Leinster final. But you never know, like how that. But the chances are, if everything holds to form, it probably will be. And if that is the case, and let's say they meet the Leinster final again, then what happens in this game? I don't think Kilkenny will pass too much remarks on it. I think it's probably more important for Galway, their home game. It's probably more pressure on the Galway management than the Kilkenny management right now. And certainly if Galway were not to win on Sunday, and there's a couple of Kilkenny main players were absent, you would have to say that wouldn't bode too well for a Leinster final in Croke Park. There's no doubt playing in Pearse Stadium is a different experience completely than playing in Croke Park. I'm sure, Greg, you'd obviously know all about that. It's a much faster surface in Croke Park. The ball is flying around the place, and even it might dictate different players for the day and things like that. So I think Galway will be putting them, and Kilkenny will be desperate not to. Oh, don't get me wrong, they'll be giving everything when they go in. I think the long-term prognosis, a Kilkenny defeat on Sunday won't do them any harm at all, whereas potentially could be more damaging to Galway. That's what I would read in here.
Just from what we said nearly all year, Craig, from different people on the podcast, obviously the bigger picture here is to win Leinster, but it's been a bit stop-start this year from the performances. Is this just on Sunday now an important time to get a performance and get a bit of momentum and positivity behind this team?
Yeah, I fully agree, and I fully agree with Kane said there. Like it's a way bigger game for Galway than it is Kilkenny, even off the back of the Leinster final last year, and the way it was lost for Galway. I think there's a lot riding in this game. Shane said the management is now in its fourth term. I think it's our third term. I think it's just it's most that we get some momentum behind the team as well. Like get a win, drive on, push on for the last few games in Leinster, and really have a bit of momentum going into the Leinster final. Like you don't want a situation, as Shane said, that Kilkenny are down one or two players, you lose on Sunday, and next thing, no matter what happens in the next three games, you're still having that in the back of your head going into the Leinster final. And especially as Kilkenny have won the last three, and you don't want that. Like you need to build a bit of momentum. Yes, you're starting 15 out the next day. Learn a lot from it. See where you are leading into the next game in regards to positions and stuff like that. And I think stick to it in as well. Like I know you're going to give Lally chances against the likes of, say, the weaker teams, and that's fine. When you're going into the likes of Wexford and Dublin, these teams, I think try and get a settled team and make Sunday the platform from that and have a win, show some good form, show a style of play. And like you see, I know, go back to Limerick again, like where they're the standard bearers like that. You see their team on Sunday, like it's just, you nearly know what it is, unless like Darden was the only injury. He's out. Colony slots into midfield. You can nearly chalk it down. Now, don't get me wrong, I know they're going for 5 in a row and all that, but at the same time, it's so like they know exactly where they are, and that's why they had the ability to come back from a losing position. But I think with Galway, I think we need to be able to walk out of Pearse Stadium on Sunday and say, Jesus, that's thereabouts to start in 15. That's going to be there for the rest of the year, bar one or two changes in personnel. So I just think that it's a massive, massive game for Galway, and they need to be all guns blazing from the very start and lay down a marker.
That's it, really, Shane, isn't it? It's important to just get that performance this weekend, and as Craig was saying there, get get a better indication. Maybe they're not going to be certain of their starting 15, but have a better idea of what's closer to the starting 15 after this game.
Well, I still don't think that that's hugely important. I just think that they have, like, the once they know they have 20, 22, 23, 20, whatever number it is, players who are comfortable throwing on championship action against likes of Kilkenny, I think they'll be happy with that. And again, as I said earlier on, they'll mix and match as they need to go. I think I fully agree with Greg. It's a huge performance. Everyone's looking forward. I think the Galway public would really look forward to seeing that and get behind it. I think they'd like to see them go for green flags. Goals are a big issue. Do you mean in terms of that? I think in the league against the three tier one teams we played, essentially 1 goal in 3 games. Whereas you saw Limerick last Sunday, they got 3 goals in 15 minutes to turn the game around, and that ability. And it's something I suppose we haven't done that well in the last, going back 3 or 4 years. We haven't really rattled. We put up goals against some of the so-called the teams at the bottom of the Leinster League, should we say, but the top teams, we struggled really to put the ball in the net and really grab the momentum at times during the game. You can go back to the Limerick game. I only remember off the top of my head here in the league that we only had 1 shot on goal. I think from Cahill was kind of a snapshot from 21 yards out. So I think, and certainly bringing Eamon O'Shea in as well, and we're really looking forward to see what he might bring to the table this year. And I think that's where the marriage of Eamon with the Galway hurling will come in, and we hope to see more goal scoring threats, more goal scoring attacks. And I think it's needed if Galway are going to go deep in the championship, and they have done they got to semi-finals. But as you said, to win Leinster, to win a semi-final, and maybe even go further, who knows, you're going to have to win the green flag battle. So I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to seeing on Sunday, and I'd love to see that Galway notch up 2 or 3 goals.
Is that something you feel we haven't done in the past against Kilkenny?
Well, I think if you go back to in the Leinster finals that we've lost, I think we conceded 4 last year, did we? And Galway scored 2, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a lot of hurling to pull back 6 points. And even if you go back to I'm struggling to think off the top of my head here now, the last time Galway scored more goals in a game than Kilkenny. And it, statistically, it backs it up. Like, if you score more goals in opposition, it's a lot easier to win it than it is to lose it.
Something we need to see this weekend as well, Craig?
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think that it goes back to, when we have a style of play that the ball goes in quick to the forward line, like Wheelo and Bino inside there, and Brian and Connor inside, they're nearly unmarkable when they get going. But it's getting the ball into them, and that goes back to, I suppose, having your starting 15 out there that know what they're doing. And as Shane rightly pointed out there, it'd be very interesting to see what style they bring the next 10 out with Eamon O'Shea in there, and what he brings it. Like, if he brings what he did to Tipperary a few years ago, that's exactly the way they played: quick, fast hurling in and cause enough of danger. And we have 2 of the best forwards in the country inside, or if Connor goes inside or Cahill goes inside, they're more than capable of doing it as well. So it'll be very interesting to see that now the next day. And as Shane said, it'll be interesting to see what sort of style. I'm actually looking forward to see that now as well, because it's probably been a bit kind of shadow boxing for the league in regards to you hadn't had your best 15 out, and what sort of play we're going trying to do. And I suppose there's a few questions asked after a few games as well, and in particular that Limerick game I was in at that, just to see what sort of way were we actually playing. So it'd be very interesting to see that set up the next day, and could be totally different to what we said there with the starting 15. They could have a totally different way of setting up, and that'd be very interesting to see.
Just then this weekend, as you were mentioning, Shane, you don't know what Kilkenny players are actually going to be fit. There's doubts over Mullen, there's doubts over Cody. But what are the key matchups Galway need to get right this weekend?
We had Owen Murphy to the mix on that one. He went off very injured, I think, at half time.
Yeah.
Head injury. Now we assume he'll come back from a head injury. But that case, I think if he's out, it's going to be a huge loss for Kilkenny as well. In terms of Galway's matchup on Kilkenny players, I think they'd like to keep Hugh Lawler and Mikey Butler as busy defending as much as possible. Mikey got up the pitch in the Leinster final last year, didn't he, and managed to stick one in the net. If Mullen plays, he's a huge part for them. He's a massive engine room player. He's on the breaks, he's on the puck out targets, he gets chips in with scores. He does an awful lot.
Against Clare, he had the chances, but he didn't score them, obviously.
But
got some amount of ball.
Yeah, and Kilkenny won't worry that he missed those ones, because we've seen him score them time and time and time again. And I've no doubt if he got the chances again on Sunday, he probably nails them. I think that's a key player. I think John Donnelly is a big player for them as well. He's very, very good in the air. He always chips in with a point or two, takes the right option, pops in passes here and there, creates goal chances. He's a big part of their puck out strategy. I'd like to see that. I'd be interested to see how that kind of pans out. Very underrated player in my book. And obviously, if he starts, Owen Cody, he was just picked for Hurl of the Year last year. He's a pleasure to watch every day he goes out. He's a top class player. I suppose from Kenny's point of view, the fact we're highlighting 3 or 4 of these players would suggest that, and 2 of them are injured already, or maybe injured for Sunday, that a lot of the game will hinge on that. And another player maybe who doesn't really get the praise at times he deserves maybe is Paddy Deegan. The amount of ball he picks up in games is incredible. Possession stats through the roof. It might look a little bit unorthodox because he tends to do everything off his left side, but he's highly effective. And not many players get the better of him when all is said and done. So I think if you could quieten down, Cody and Mullen, which is a lot easier said than done, keep Paddy Deegan off delivering the ball, and keep the defenders busy defending, you've gone a long way towards breaking their spirit.
Just with that, Craig, defensively, Shane makes some great points. It's going to be really key to keep Deegan, Lawler and Butler all quite defensively and keep them busy. But on those Kilkenny forwards, what Galway backs are you looking at picking up some of those Kilkenny forwards this weekend?
Look, as we mentioned earlier, I think if Owen Cody starts in the corner, I think Jack will pick him up. They've had a good few battles down through the years, so that'll be very interesting to see. Owen Cody on his day over the last 2 to 3 years is probably up there in the top 3 forwards in the country. So, but Jack is a great man marker, so that'll be a great battle. Be interesting to see who marks TJ. If Finton starts at fullback, TJ and himself will be a good old battle. They've had a few battles at club down through the years, so that'll be a very good battle as well. Especially in the high ball. 2 of them love the high ball, so that'll be interesting. As we mentioned earlier on as well, I think if Mullen plays in the wing, I'd love to see Dahi on him. Dahi obviously is an unbelievable man marker as well, nullify what he does. I think if you can keep the 3 of them quiet, John Donnelly obviously is a great point there. He chips in very well at 6 or at 11. So whoever's in 6 there will have to stay tight to him. He gets through the mountain of work in a game, so he does. So the other side of that there is, I was talking to Shane Hines during the week. He refereed that game down in Kilkenny the last day, and he said after the first goal went in, it was just over. There was no atmosphere. The game was over. So I know Murphy and Adrian Mullen and Cody went off, but I'd say a lot of precautionary stuff there as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 started. I know Owen Murphy's is a head injury, but and the other side of it, then I'd be very interested to see what happens with Wheelo. Does Hugh Lawler pick him up? Hugh Lawler is a great man marker. Would he pull out a full back? Obviously, he'd probably be a 2-man inside. So Wheelo and Hugh Lawler will be very interesting, and then Mikey Butler maybe on Brian, if Brian starts in the corner, or whoever starts in the corner, they'll be interesting matchups as well. David Blanchfield also, who's very, very good in the air. If Joey Cooney starts in the wing or Connor starts in that wing, probably Connor on that side, that'd be very, very interesting, especially in the air. Then puckouts will be very interesting in the air. I know you've already touched on Paddy Deegan, but he'll be a very good one to see in the air as well for the puckouts. And in the middle of the field, as we mentioned earlier on, I'd be very, very interested to see how Richie Reid and Davy match up against each other. So similar players. They're like 2 quarterbacks and sitting in the pocket there, just pinging out balls. So what'll happen there? It'll be very interesting to see. And then Keane Kenny and Sean Linehan or Ronan Glynn, or whoever that is, just 2 lads that love to run and run and run. So there's loads of intriguing battles. Maybe they won't line up like that at all. Maybe it'll be just something totally different, but they're the ones I really like to see.
I think an interesting one there as well, Paul. Maybe it was in the second half Ireland Club final. Conor Cooney went in on Hugh Lawler. Hugh had an outstanding first half, but Conor Cooney made a big difference, and he really held the ball up, got a couple of scores, if I'm not mistaken, in the second half Ireland Club final, and that could be an option at some stage for Galway as well.
Just looking at their half forward line the last day, it was Adrian Mullen at 10, Owen Cody at 11, and John Donnelly at 12. Do you think if Cody and Mullen are in the half forward line, does that change anything for Galway from what we've talked about?
No, and I think Galway will prepare as if they are starting. They've no choice but to do that. And I think from a neutral's point of view or a fan's point of view, I hope they are playing, because it'd be a better game if the top players are playing. It'll be a better game to watch. Obviously, I want Galway to win, but at the same time, you want to see the best players on show. And I don't think it'll change. Galway will. I'd be Greg, you'd be more familiar with the inner workings of Galway's planning than I would, but they'll prepare as if they're playing, and if they're not playing, when they get word on that, they'll have a plan B and switch onto that and matchups for the players who are most likely to replace them. Even if that word only comes in 10 minutes before throwing, the message will still get to the players, I imagine, before the start of the game.
What was this Galway Kilkenny game like, Craig, when you were involved?
Yeah, sure. Look, it was the biggest game of the year at the time. When I was involved, we played them in our Ireland final in 15. We came across them in Leinster finals in 16. We just came across them a lot at the time, like, and as the years went on as well, or as the games went on in the Ireland series, we came across them. But
Was there a dislike?
there probably was, yeah. There was that rivalry. It's your number one rivalry, really, as such, because you don't meet a Munster team until the semi-final. So yeah, you are like that again. Like back then, it was a bit like Kilkenny and Clare, as we mentioned. Like you could meet them 3 times. You meet them in the Leinster, you meet them in the Leinster final, and you could meet them in an Ireland final. So there was that there, like, but I suppose look at it. It's like anything, like it's do or die with Kilkenny no matter when you go. Like there's no such thing, and I've seen a reference for it there on Monday in some paper about how it's going to be a game of shadow boxing on Sunday. There's no such thing, like, and Galway and Kilkenny Championship, like you just do not want to lose no matter what. So it's going to be all out, and like it's going to be there'll be no holds barred, like there'll be nothing held back for a Leinster final or anything like that, because as Galway have seen in the past, you can get caught out, like 2019 caught out against Dublin. It can happen, like, so you can't be preparing like that. And like Shane said, you will be fully focused on their best 15 going out. And I don't think with any of the Galway backs, I don't think that they're going to be sitting down with their analysis crew and saying, right, we need to pinpoint our man mark. So if Cody plays in the half-hour line, whoever's at 6 will be marking them. You're not going to put someone out from cornerback or fullback to mark them. There's no need. You trust your 6 backs around you, and I think that's the position that Galway are in. You don't need to be putting on. I don't think there's going to be any man marking as such. They'll play their 6 positions. So no, like it'll be very interesting to see. Like Kenny also had some good performances off the bench the last day as well. Like
Yeah, Mossy Keown, someone we haven't mentioned either.
Mossy Keown, very, very good. Drennan Wall, come on, absolute flyer. Chipped him in a few points. So they also have the reserves as well there. Maybe not as well renowned maybe it's not as much caps you could say as the Galway lads, but they're definitely there. So it'd be an intriguing battle to the very end now. Like, and it'll be a real game of 20 players, I think, the next day.
Just there when Craig mentioned shadowboxing that he doesn't expect to see it, do you just expect both of these teams to go at a chain on Sunday?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's championship. Like they're going to go, like there's no way a management team is telling them, right, ease off the throttle here. Like it's just take a life its own, out we go. And both managements want to see what they have. I mean, they both want to see what's the capability of their squad, and they want to know where the squad is in terms of like aggression levels, attitude levels. Are they willing to put the work in, the dog, the grit into the game? And there'll be certainly guaranteed to be no holds back. The first 10 minutes will be rip roaring, I expect. Lots of heavy body contact shots, that kind of stuff. And rightly so. It's championship. That's the way it should be.
So, final predictions on this game. How do you see it going, Craig?
I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it'll be very tight. I think there's going to be goals. I think, as Shane said, I think there's going to be Kilkenny have produced goals. I think Galway, I'd imagine, will go for goals. I think it's going to be high scoring, and I think that if you look at the Clare, I know I keep referencing this game, but you referenced the best. But the Clare and Limerick at the weekend, 55 to 60 minutes into the game, it was a totally different game by the time it got to 75 minutes. And by that, I mean that the 5 subs that Limerick brought on changed their whole game. Like Adam English, I thought, got control of the game in the midfield, got on loads of possessions. Like I think 5 subs made all the difference. Whereas Clare were on their subs, and I don't think that they probably needed it at the time. But like Tony Kelly come on, Hayes came off. I just think it was a bit, and I think by the time it was all over and you're reflecting it, the game totally turned in its head. And I know you can say Limerick had a great experience and they're great closers and all that, but I think that the subs made all the difference. And I think that'll be the same way with Galway. I think that'll come down to the end straight. I think it'll be very tight. And I think that, as we spoke about there with Galway's experience, I think it'll be very, very tight, but I think it's maybe 2-3 point win for Galway.
Obviously, Shane, this is what the Leinster Championship needs this weekend to maybe just spark it into life after the two kind of mismatches we did have at the weekend. But how do you see it going in the end?
I think the fact the game is on a Pearse Stadium is a help to Galway. I think our record in Croke Park has been average at best over the last 3 or 4 years. I think that if you go back to the league final against Clare, Clare hurt them with real hard direct running down the middle. They created goal chances. They created, I think they might have got a penalty or something like that as well. I suppose the question I'd have here is who's going to do that hard running for Galway? Who's going to break a line, really go right through the heart of the defence? And that'll be obviously combated, if you like, by Kilkenny. They'll have looked at the analysis of the Clare game. They'll be determined that nobody comes on that middle channel, and they'll be determined to set the tone early. And I think if Galway can get a little bit of joy coming down the middle and get a goal, I think it'll make a huge difference to Galway's outlook. I think it'll lift the crowd, get them involved. I think if Galway get ahead in this scenario, the way Clare, as you mentioned, Greg, I think if Galway get ahead 5, 6, 7 lead, I think they hold out all the way, personally. But I do think if Owen Cody is absent from the game, it just changes the dynamic. He's a big difference maker for Kilkenny, and he'd be a huge plus for Galway if he wasn't playing. I don't think there'll be any, again, as I said before, I don't think there'll be any carryover from this to a Leinster final if they both met it. So I'm going to go with Galway, but not as, I think it'll be very tight, maybe 2 or 3 points max. I know TJ from Limerick, TJ Ryan was a couple weeks ago. He said that Galway are #1 team in Leinster. I don't know until they beat Kilkenny in Leinster final. They can't. Just don't see how that can be the case. They have to win. So in order to sow the seeds for further down the road, I think this is a massive game for Galway, and I see them squeaking up by 2 points.
It shouldn't be understated either. This is a huge result if we can get this weekend before we go to Wexford Park next weekend.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest places I ever played in was Wexford Park. It's such a hard place to go to. The crowd are in on top of you. They're loud. They're in your face. There's a wind always down there, a bit like Pearse Stadium. It's a tough place to go to get a result. I don't think I don't know, did I ever get a result down there. It's just really, really tough place to go. So, and like, look, they're going to be hurting as well after the weekend, and the demeanour of those, how they finished up that game, 2 goals in extra time. So they'll be absolutely buzzing for Galway to come down in 2 weeks' time. In 2 weeks' time. So I just think that the last thing you want is to be losing to Kilkenny and going down there and trying to be scraping a win, or you're chasing a win, like so. And then like waiting in the long grass, then you're going to have Mihal and Franny and Noel waiting as well, like after that. So it's a massive game for Galway. I think it'll set up their year lovely. If you do, you'll gain confidence going down to Wexford Park and so on, then leading up to the Dublin game. So I just think that, like Ian very rightly stated it earlier on, it's a lot bigger game for Galway to lose than it is for Kilkenny.
Just finally then, before we do finish, the Miners went down to Kilkenny at the weekend and they got a bit of a beating and finished 24-114. It's obviously only their first game in the Leinster Championship. They're in a tier 1 and then they go into the knockout stages. But it was a difficult result at the weekend for them, Shane.
It was, but like it's not we've been spoiled in many ways with Minor for the last maybe 7 or 8 years. Many as a team have been Galway team have got well beaten, and funny enough, the last 3 times Galway got hammered by minor teams, they went out the following year and they won All Ireland. I think the beauty of it now is that we actually get a second chance. We get a chance to play more games, and that's all we ever wanted. I'd still be very disappointed the fact that we still have no home games under 20, no home games in minor. Now maybe that'll change next year with the relationship with the Wexford agreement. If I remember also, I think the Galway Miners a couple of years ago, footballers, they lost twice to Mayo along the way and ended up beating them in the Ireland final. So all is not lost on this one yet. And I'm sure Kenneth and his team, they'll have had a good sit down. They'll know a lot more about the players after last weekend. And by all accounts, they reading the reports, seeing some of the stuff online, some of the highlights, that was a seriously talented Kilkenny team. And if you go to Nolan Park enough times, eventually you're going to end up on the wrong side of a result against Kilkenny. And it's about, I think it's 2014 maybe, that the last time Kilkenny had beaten Galway in minor. So if it was 10 more years and we won for the next 10 years again, I think we'd take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing to happen this early on, really, Craig, isn't it not?
No, not too bad. No, like in all fairness, it's a lesson, I suppose, for the young lads. But at the same time, as Shane's rightly said, loads more games to play, and that's exactly what you want. So, yeah, I wouldn't be reading too much into it. I know I was talking to Evan there a few weeks ago. I think Kilroy's with them, like, and they're very happy with how things are going in there.
Yeah, no home games disappointing, and they didn't get invited into the Leinster Under-19 Development League either this year. But no surprise the things that happen. But we won't get into that. I think that's another night's discussion. But that's all we do have time for on today's podcast. Thanks to Shane and Craig for coming on.
Thanks, Paul.